The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry hornets as I sat down in the cold metal chair, my heart pounding in my chest. Captain Marcus Reed, with his broad shoulders and piercing eyes, slammed the door shut and fixed his gaze on me like I was already guilty. "Mr. Caldwell, let's cut to the chase. That data leak at your company has your fingerprints all over it, and I want to know why you did it," he said, his voice steady and commanding. I swallowed hard, my hands clammy against the table. At 28, I had built a decent life as a graphic designer in Chicago, but one stupid night defending my colleague from a homophobic rant at the office party had snowballed into this nightmare. The company accused me of leaking client files to cover their own tracks, and now here I was in a downtown precinct room that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. "I didn't do it, Captain. I was just trying to stop a fight. You have the wrong guy." Marcus leaned forward, his uniform crisp and his jaw set. He was older, maybe 35, with short dark hair and a scar above his left eyebrow that made him look like he'd seen real battles. "Wrong guy? Your name's on the access logs, Ethan. And witnesses say you were arguing with the victim right before the files vanished. Start talking, or this gets a lot uglier." His tone was all business, but something in his eyes flickered when he said my name, like he was sizing me up beyond the case. Hours dragged on. He fired questions about my coworkers, my late nights at the office, even my personal life. I told him the truth, that I'd come out to my family years ago and they had barely spoken to me since, that I kept my head down at work to avoid drama. When I mentioned the bar incident where I'd stood up for my friend against slurs, Marcus paused. His pen stopped scratching on the notepad. "You think standing up for someone makes you a hero? In my world, it just makes you a target." His voice softened for a split second, then hardened again. "Keep going." By midnight, the room felt smaller. I was exhausted, but Marcus didn't let up. He slid a photo across the table, me and my ex at a Pride event years back. "This your idea of keeping a low profile? Explains a lot." I felt exposed, like he'd peeled back a layer I hadn't offered. Yet instead of mocking me, he just stared, his expression unreadable. "Family doesn't always understand, does it?" he muttered, almost to himself. That was the first crack. I didn't know it then, but that small admission would unravel everything we both thought we knew about ourselves. The next morning, they let me go on bail, but Marcus made it clear he'd be watching. As I walked out into the Chicago dawn, I couldn't shake the feeling that those piercing eyes had seen more than just a suspect. Little did I know, the man who'd interrogated me was already questioning his own locked-away truths. The second interrogation came 2 days later. Marcus called me in himself, saying new evidence needed clarification. I sat in the same chair, but this time the air felt different, charged like the storm before rain. He started formal, reviewing timelines and emails, but after an hour his questions veered personal. "You mentioned your family cut you off. How does that feel, carrying that every day?" I hesitated, then told him the raw truth. How my parents in suburban Illinois still sent holiday cards addressed only to me, pretending my boyfriend never existed until he didn't. How I'd learned to build walls so thick no one could hurt me again. Marcus listened without interrupting, his broad frame relaxed for the first time. When I finished, he rubbed his temple. "Military family myself. Dad was a colonel. Expectations were ironclad. Be strong, be straight, be the man they raised." He caught himself and straightened. Not that it matters here, but it did. Over the next sessions, pieces fell into place. He shared fragments. Tours overseas where he buried feelings under duty, a brief marriage that ended because he couldn't connect the way she deserved. Each confession came wrapped in professional distance, yet his eyes lingered longer on mine. I found myself looking forward to these meetings, dreading the day the case closed. One evening, after the precinct emptied, Marcus brought coffee, black for him, with cream for me, exactly how I liked it. "You're not like the guys I usually question," he admitted. "Most hide behind lies. You own who you are." His hand brushed mine as he passed the cup, and neither of us pulled away immediately. The touch sent a jolt through me, and I saw the same surprise flash across his face. "This stays between us," he said quietly. "The case is bigger than you think. Someone higher up is framing you." That night, walking home through the loop, I replayed every word. Marcus wasn't just doing his job anymore. He was fighting something inside himself, the same way I'd fought years ago. The walls I built started cracking, and I wondered if his were crumbling too. The charges were dropped after Marcus uncovered the real leak, a supervisor covering tracks. I was free, but he insisted on follow-up meetings at a quiet coffee shop near the lake. Procedure, he called it, but we both knew better. Over lattes and city noise, our conversations deepened. He told me about the pressure from his department brothers, the jokes that cut too close, the fear of losing the only family he'd ever known. I shared stories of lonely holidays and friends who drifted when my truth became too real. One Saturday, we walked the lakeshore path. Marcus in civilian clothes looked younger, less armored. When a group of guys made a crude comment about two men walking together, he tensed, then surprised me by stepping closer. Ignore them. I've spent too long caring what people think. His shoulder brushed mine, and for the first time, the tension felt like possibility. Yet misunderstandings crept in. When I invited him to meet my best friend, another gay guy from work, Marcus canceled last minute. Too risky, he texted. I felt the rejection like a slap, wondering if I'd misread everything. Days later, he showed up at my apartment unannounced, rain soaking his jacket. I panicked. Whatever this is, it scares me more than any case. We talked until dawn, and when he left, he squeezed my hand at the door. You're changing me, Ethan. I don't know if that's good or terrifying. The bond grew stronger, but so did the shadows, his colleagues whispering, my parents calling with guilt trips about fixing myself. Still, every conversation felt like oxygen after years underwater. The crisis hit without warning. Marcus's partner, a veteran detective, cornered him in the locker room. Reed, people are talking. You and that Caldwell kid, late nights, private meets. You going soft on suspects now. The accusations spread like wildfire. Marcus denied it, but the damage was done. He pulled back hard, canceling our next meet and ignoring texts. I confronted him at the precinct parking lot. Is this how it ends? One rumor, and you disappear? His face was etched with pain. You don't understand. My career, my reputation, everything I've built would burn. And my dad, he'd never forgive me. We argued under the streetlights, voices low but emotions raw. I accused him of hiding. He accused me of pushing too fast. In the end, he walked away, shoulders slumped. At home, my mother called, her voice tight. Ethan, we heard you're involved with some cop. Think of your future. The old rejection stung fresh. I sat on my couch, staring at the city lights, wondering if Marcus and I had been fools to believe a connection born in an interrogation room could survive the real world. Marcus made his choice in the hearing room. The company tried one last push to blame me, but he took the stand and laid out the evidence he'd gathered off the books, emails, timelines, everything that cleared me and exposed the real culprit. Gasps rippled through the room when he admitted the personal stake. I couldn't let an innocent man pay for someone else's fear, he said, eyes finding mine. Afterward, his captain suspended him pending review. We met in a park that evening, the air crisp with autumn. I risked it all, he said, voice breaking, because you showed me what living honestly looks like. I was tired of lying to myself. Tears welled in his eyes, the first I'd seen. I pulled him into a hug, feeling the weight he'd carried for decades lift slightly. The sacrifice cost him his promotion track, but it bought us truth. Months later, we stood on the Navy Pier, the Ferris wheel glowing against the night sky. Marcus had transferred to a community outreach unit. Less pressure, more honesty. My parents had started slow conversations, awkward but real. His father hadn't spoken yet, but Marcus no longer hid who he was. That interrogation room changed everything, he said, taking my hand openly. You didn't just save your name. You saved me from a life half-lived. We had faced betrayals, family storms, and internal wars, but every step forged us stronger. The love that started in suspicion had become our anchor. True or false? One unexpected encounter can truly change two men's lives forever. Or is it just a fleeting illusion against society's pressures?